Happy New Year to everybody. We'll now call this meeting to order, our first meeting in 2022. For roll call, I will call the board members' names in alphabetical order. If you have a camera, please turn it on briefly when I call your name. Nick Kuntz.
Sorry, I'm here.
James Langhorn.
I'm here.
John Maloney.
Here.
Jim Marston.
Present.
Paul Spieler. Here. Okay, so we have some general business. We have a nomination of the chair and vice chair. We will now nominate a member of the board for chair. Board members, please unmute yourself and use a camera if you have one. If you don't have a camera, please announce your name before speaking. So do we have any volunteers or comments on who would like to chair and vice chair?
Well, this is Jim Marston, and I would like to volunteer Paul Spieler to continue in his role as chair.
This is John Maloney. I second that.
Okay, thank you. We need a motion from the board to approve the nomination of the board member as chair, Paul Spieler.
Jim Marston here.
We have a motion. Yep. Jim Marston made the motion and John Maloney seconded the motion.
Yes.
Now we'll call the vote on the nomination. Okay, let's let's also select a vice chair before we vote on the motion. So do we have a member that would like to be a vice chair?
John Maloney, I'd like to nominate Nick.
Oh, thank you, but I don't think I have the capacity. But I was wondering if Mr. Langhorn would be interested.
How about now? Am I?
Yeah. I hear
Yes, we can hear you now, Jim.
Thank you. I will do it. I prefer not to, but I'd do it unless somebody else would like to.
Is there anybody else that would like to step up for vice chair nomination?
Well, this is
Okay,
Jim.
I
will second Nick's nomination for Mr. Langhorn as vice president.
Okay, great. Okay, we're ready to call to vote for the nomination of James Langhorn as vice chair and Paul Spieler as chair. We will use roll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Nick Kuntz.
Aye.
James Langhorn.
Aye.
John Maloney.
Aye.
Jim Marston.
Aye.
Paul Spieler. Aye. Motion carries. All right, we will now open for public comment. For anyone wishing to speak about items not on this agenda, please note, due to time constraints, each person may be limited to 2 minutes. Moderator, would you please check if we have any panelists that wish to speak?
Thank you. So it does look like we have one hand raised, and before I bring them up, I just want to go over our public comment process. So we do have a raise your hand function on the left-hand side of your screen if you wish to raise your hand and are using a computer. If you're using a phone and you wish to raise your hand, you would press *9. The shortcut key if you're on a Windows computer is Alt-Y, and a shortcut key if you're on a Mac is Option +Y. When I invite you up to speak, I will make an announcement of your name and send you a notification if you're on a computer to unmute yourself. Just click the unmute button and you'll be allowed to speak. If you're on a phone, just press *6 once you're called up to speak. Chair, it looks like we have a couple of people ready to speak. One of them is Accessible Santa Barbara, and I will invite them up to speak now.
All right, very good.
Hi, everybody. Will Railing, Accessible Santa Barbara, and Happy New Year. Best wishes for this new term of the Appeals Board. And I just thought the timing was right to put in a plug for how important what you do is for accessibility in the city. You know, we all talk about ADA in shorthand, but the fact is that the California Building Code is as good or better for accessibility and for public accommodations and commercial facilities in particular. And that's what's, you know, we all understand that the Appeals Board does not deal with federal ADA, it does deal with the California Building Code. And we think that there have been a lot of difficulties in the city under COVID, in particular, with work being done without building permits, and subsequently not having the correct accessibility done within it. So it's unclear, you know, to what extent matters will work their way up to the Appeals Board for consideration, but it's you are playing a really important role in the city in promoting and enforceability, promoting and enforcing accessibility requirements. And I just wanted to thank you for that, and again, wish you luck for this new year. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Will. Do we have any other public comments?
Yes, there is one more person waiting to speak, and I will call Raymond Appleton to the floor if you would like to speak on general public comment.
Hello, I'm here. Brenda, I can't see anything.
We can hear you, Raymond, if you would like to speak on general public comment.
I'm also on the webinar. Okay. Yes. I just wanted to bring notice that I will later be making a presentation for the McTeagues, who own 931 California. But a new idea has come forward to mediate the solution, and that is a lot line adjustment at the easement line. Under the easement line itself is not in question, easement was recorded, but the deck that is going to be spoken about is a 4 feet.
Hello, sorry to.
So anyway, I spoke with Tim Dunn about this, and I just want to let you know that that mediation is going to have a lot to say about what is presented by Tim, who I've spoken with already this morning, about this solution for everything. And I'll be bringing that up. And I've spoken with the McTeagues, and I've spoken with the realtor for the Smants, the other person who is trying to sell the property now.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I'm
this is related directly to what's in the agenda. So this is something that could be presented at that point. This is for items that are not directly in the agenda. Thank you, and I apologize for the interruption.
Okay, do we have any other public comment speakers?
Thank you.
We weren't listening to what they were saying. They said this is it's mute.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have any other speakers wishing to speak at this time.
All right, thank you, Crystal. We will now close public comment and move on to the first subject item. First subject item is approval of the minutes. Yes?
We need to do the minutes, approval of the minutes. Am I correct?
That's what we're going to do right now, yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we have closed public comment. Now we have the approval of the minutes for the Building and Fire Code Board of Appeals meeting of October 7th, 2021. Are there any comments from the board? Please unmute yourself and use a camera if you have one. If you don't have a camera, please announce your name before speaking. All right, we need a motion for the board to approve the minutes.
This is John Maloney. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes.
And do we have a second for the motion?
Jim Marston here. I'll second the motion.
Okay, great. Let's call to vote on the on the October 7th, 2021 minutes. We will use roll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Nick Kuntz.
Aye.
James Langhorn. James Langhorn.
Aye.
John Maloney.
Aye.
Jim Marston.
Aye.
Paul Spieler. Aye. Motion carries. Now are there any announcements from the board or staff? Please remember to turn on your camera if you need to speak or state your name if you aren't using a camera. Are there any announcements?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Jose Barajas here. Just would like to inform you and members of the public that Jeff Hornbuckle has stepped down from the Board of Appeals. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jose. Are there any other comments from the board or staff?
Well, this is Jim Marston for Jose. Do we know when the next round of applications, nominations are?
I don't have the date for that, Board Member Marston. I can look into it. I know currently, at least as of September, there is still one when I stepped down.
Okay, I wasn't sure why it wasn't announced at the last round of nominations, but anyway, thank you for looking into that.
Yep.
It's interesting. Sorry, this is Nick Kuntz. It's interesting to me that as of whenever the last code amendment occurred, Andrew Stuffler set this up as a 7-member board. So we now have 2 vacancies, and one of those vacancies must represent accessibility, is my understanding. Is that is Mr. Doimus on the line? Can he confirm that understanding?
I am, Commissioner. That is my understanding. Correct. There's 7.
And this is Jim Marston again. Mr. Doimus, I think we talked before about 1 member should be from the general public of the 7. Have we ever come to an agreement on that?
Yes, we have 1 member, and so I'm working with the clerk's office. I haven't been in the office in the last few months. I was in an accident, so I'm returning back in the next few weeks, and I'll be working with the clerk's office on that issue to make sure they have the right recruitment out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is Chair Spieler. I'm confused about the public member. Wouldn't I be considered a public member?
This is Nick Kuntz, and let me clarify my concern on the public member. Mr. Spieler, you and other members of this board who represent the trade professions are in a position of uh, you have clients or prospective clients who might be making appeals, and we all have our biases and we all try to put them aside. But I believe it's my belief that the general member of the public is intended to be someone who doesn't have that that affiliation with potential business association with appellants or an agenda to improve accessibility for that matter.
Okay, that clarifies it a little bit. Are there any other announcements? All right, we will close announcements, and that brings us to our first subject item, which is discussion of the adjusted construction cost. And it looks like this item is to be continued to the next Board of Appeals meeting.
I have a question.
So we have subject item number, yes.
I have a question on this. Why was it agendized for discussion and noted that it will be continued?
Thank you, Board Member Kuntz. This is Tina Dye, Chief Building Official. This was a continuation and a copy paste from our previous agenda where we did have a discussion.
Okay, so there's nothing new being discussed or presented today.
Correct.
Great. Just for the record, I'm happy to continue this discussion indefinitely as long as it takes to get us to a place where we all feel like we have a better system. So thank you.
I appreciate that and the patience of the board. We have about 30% staff missing that we're recruiting for currently. So we hope to be getting to this at the next meeting for the Board of Appeals.
This is Jim Marston. Speaking of that, Ms. Dye, I saw your ad for the new plan checker, and it said something about they want you to have a CASP or to have it done within the next year. Are you trying to get a fully qualified CASP now? And how do we know that someone can get their appointment within, or their certification within a year? How do you do that if someone says, oh yeah, I'm going to get my CASP, and yet they don't?
That's a great question, Board Member Marston. This is pretty standard language in a recruitment. Many times you'll have an applicant that has years of experience with accessibility but has not obtained the CASP certification yet. So this allows an applicant to be hired and work on the certification within the first year of employment. But yes, we are looking for someone who has the certification. That would be desirable that they already have it.
Okay.
But this allows some flexibility to hire the right candidate with the right experience and gives them an opportunity to get that certification within a year.
I understand that. My fear is that this is a very hard test, and if a person says they're going to do it and then they flunk the test for a few times, they might not get it within a year. So I didn't know how that worked.
That's a possibility,
Okay.
obviously, but we're hopeful that that would not happen.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're looking for that position anyway.
Thank you.
Is there any way to, sorry, this is Nick Kuntz, in thinking about this potential employee who might not have a CASP certification but is willing to attempt it, could there be some sort of contract that withholds some of the compensation until it's achieved?
So this is Chair Spieler. This isn't an agendized item. Are we okay to talk about this during this meeting?
Good point. Sorry. I withdraw the question.
No problem. I just thought John Doimus could maybe comment.
Yeah, we're not. We need to discuss. I mean, we can kind of raise a question or that, future business, bring it up, but not talk substantively. So now we're kind of getting into that part. So I look at like a referee during a boxing match. It's like, okay, now it's a little bit we're going along that road. So we should stop and go back to the agenda. Thank you.
I fully appreciate that. Sorry.
Nick or Jim, would you like to have that for a question at our next meeting or discussion?
I think I'll trust the chief building official on this, and I've raised something for them to think about.
And this is
okay.
This is Jim. I think that'd be fine if Tina could just communicate her answers to that or how they're going to do that in the future. That would be fine. We don't need to have it on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you, board members. And
if I can comment, we probably, for the benefit of the public down the road when we have that, we'll probably put it on the agenda and have a quick discussion presentation when the time comes. It's probably the best way, especially since it's been brought up in public meetings before. It'd be fair to the public. So we'll do that. So.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to subject item 2, which is the appeal for 931 Calle Corta. The description of the appeal is regarding the enforcement case ENF 2017-01224. Violation findings during the investigation. A new sliding glass door was installed without approval or permit. Number 2, the deck was built on an adjacent property without approval or permits. Number 3, a new fence was constructed without approval or permits. Number 4, the existing carport has a man door leading to a platform to the roof. The platform is more than 10 feet from grade and does not have rails with guards. Now we will recognize staff for a presentation of this appeal. Staff, please present and advise of the standing motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We would like to introduce Timo Rodriguez, and he will be presenting on behalf of the city.
Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead, Timo. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Member Spieler, and thank you, board members, for having me today. I'm here to present the staff report regarding 931 Calle Corta enforcement case 2017-01224. On October 17, 2017, a complaint was filed with the Building and Safety for work without permits for major interior and exterior remodel. The work described reconfiguration of the existing footprint, including new electrical wiring, skylights, doors, windows, drywall, and construction of the new exterior stairway to the second-story deck on the side of the house built in the setback on the neighbor's property. On November 2nd, 2017, September 1st, 2021, and September 16th, 2021, city inspectors inspected the subject property. An amended notice of violation was published. And on October 28th, 2021, or the notice of violation, the amended notice of violation was published on October 28th, 2021, if you want to see exhibit number 1. I'm not sure, does everybody have the agenda in front of them or the staff report?
Yes, I have it, Timo. This is Chair Spieler.
Okay. If you see on page 6 of exhibit number 2, I'm sorry. On C page exhibit 6 on exhibit 2, an additional pictures of the deck that we had that was not part of the original amended notice of violation. The original permit number 1483 issued in January 28th of 1963 identifies a new 1,005 square foot residence and a detached carport. See exhibit 3. The city of Santa Barbara has no records of the deck that was constructed at the property located at 931 Calle Cortita. Additionally, the city of Santa Barbara has no record of a signed easement to allow construction over a property line, which it appears to be built. If you see Exhibit 4 showing the only known easement between 931 Calle Cortita and 937 Calle Cortita for the installation, maintenance, repair, and replacement of a sewer line and for a walkway. Exhibit 5 is showing a survey from February 20th, 2007 for the adjacent property, 937 Calle Cortita. Page number 2 of 3 establishes property lines between 931 Calle Cortita and 937 Calle Cortita. Exhibit 6 shows the city of Santa Barbara mapping software site plan on 931 Calle Cortita. The yellow line represents the property lines, and the black line, the black rectangular represents the location of the deck, in which it's encroaching into 937 Calle Cortita. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Bringing that in. In summary, no permits have been obtained for the deck, which appears to be encroaching onto the adjacent property. The property owner is required to obtain a building permit for the deck, including providing a survey showing property lines to establish required setbacks, which may result in reconstruction of a portion of the deck or for demolition of the deck within 30 days of the Building and Fire Appeals Board decision, and the work must be completed within 90 days of permit issuance. I do have a witness. I have her on the phone with me at this moment. She's having trouble getting into the appeals hearing. I don't know if this can be arranged by me allowing her to speak off of my phone that I have in front of me, or does she have to call in to the number that she is having a hard time getting into?
So long as Timo and Commission Board, so long as the public and commission can hear the person, that's the only requirement. So if we can hear her through your phone, that's fine. We just can't be a private conversation. So.
This is Jim Marston. Timo, I have one question. The photographs that you show in your staff report, what's the date on those? They show pictures of the porch and people working on the porch. Can you tell us when that was taken? Yeah, that group there.
Timo, you're still muted.
I apologize. Give me 1 second, Sherry. Yes, the person who took those pictures are saying is from 2017, board member.
Okay, thank you.
I'm, if it's okay, I do have the property owner from 937 Calle Cortita, Sherry Schmidt. If you want to do a test, I have her here. Go ahead, Sherry.
This is Sherry Schmidt.
Can everybody hear Sherry? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Sherry, go ahead and present what you'd like to present.
That it's non-1 hour fire rated illegal construction on my property and it needs to be removed. It's violating the easement, which only allows a walkway.
Okay. At this time, the city is finished with their presentation, and Sherry is as well. Thank you.
Timo, this is Jim Marston again. I have a question on your Exhibit 8 showing the patio.
Yes, go ahead, board member.
Okay, when I saw the drawing that Mr. Appleton sent, it showed a yellow area for that patio that looked to be 12 feet plus 3 feet for a total of 15 feet. Now, I used to be a land surveyor, And when I look at that picture of that new patio, it's hard to think that that's 15 feet from the house out to the fence. Has that been measured at all? Am I totally crazy, or is that much more than 15 feet?
You're muted. This is Tim Dunn.
I'm sorry, Board Member Morrison. I did not measure the deck, and I don't want to speculate the size of it from a picture.
Okay.
This is Nick Kuntz. I have a question for for Ms. Schmant. Can Ms. Schmant tell us when she believes this deck was constructed or reconstructed or extended? Seems to me that evidence supports the notion that there was a deck here permitted to extend a total of 15 feet from the house, and it looks like it may be bigger than that now. And I'm wondering if Ms. Schmant can tell us when she believed that change in size might have happened.
Mr. Chair, board members, just a quick note. Could you please reference the page number? It would help Crystal in getting the public to the right page and everyone to be able to see it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking at page 5, Exhibit 8.
Sherry, they had that question for you for Board Member Kuntz.
They added the fence during the 2017 enforcements and the door. The original deck, we're not sure. It was a rental that we had, so it was either the second or third property owner, Dr. Stewart, or the one before.
So this is Nick Kuntz again. If I understand correctly, this property once belonged to your father?
Yes.
And when he owned it, there was a deck there, and at some point, the deck appears to have been expanded. Is that your belief?
No, I lived there and there was no deck.
You lived there when there was no deck. Interesting, because the county records that the appellant is providing shows a 15-foot deck permitted.
I haven't seen that. How does the assessor's office permit a deck?
Well, I guess that's a good point.
Well, when the permit gets approved by the building department, then the assessor gets a copy of those plans, and then they record it in their documents. This is Chair Spieler, by the way.
Okay. Well, Jim Marston here. If there was a permit, we don't have it anymore. So I don't think, Paul, that maybe the assessors did not have a permit, but it's hard to tell. But either way, the assessor does not say it's permitted. He just says it was there. And the letter from Mr. The appellant's guy, forgot his name, Appleton. He shows one with a yellow mark showing a 15-foot deck. So it is kind of confusing.
Okay, let's move on and recognize the appellant, so that and then after we hear the appellant, then we can may have more information that we can discuss back and forth. All right, so at this time, the chair recognizes you.
I'm sorry, I still have one more question for staff on this. I'm trying to find a page number on the staff report. I've scrolled down to what is Exhibit 5, and I apologize because I believe there's more than one page or one thing labeled Exhibit 5, but I'm looking at the Waters Land Surveying report dated February 20, 2007. And I'm wondering who commissioned this survey. It looks like Cheryl Schmidt was TC'd on it. Did Ms. Schmidt, did you commission the survey?
1 second. What? Go ahead, Ms. Schmidt. Go ahead. Board Member Coots.
Before I could pour my foundation for my addition, which was permitted, the city required me to get the survey, making sure I was not building in any of my setbacks, and that's what the survey shows. And it also shows the deck encroaching in the easement.
Yeah, and I guess I'm a little confused as to why it took 10 years to raise a concern.
I had a verbal agreement with the owner when he moved, he would remove the deck. And then these people who are executors of the trust, they moved him out and they disagreed with that. So.
Okay. Thank you. I have no more. We can move on.
All right, let's move on to the appellant so that we recognize the appellant Raymond Appleton of Permit Planners on behalf of the owner Sherry McTeague to present their request. Ray, would you please present the appellant's request?
Okay, you ready?
Hello, Timo. Brenda, I'm not on the screen.
Okay.
They'll put you on the screen.
We can.
Okay.
That's Tim Dunn talking here.
Tim? Join as panelist. No. Once to post me to be a panelist.
Okay.
Join as panelist.
Okay.
Look, right there.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay.
Hello, Raymond. Mr. Appleton, we can hear you loud and clear. We can't see you, but we can hear you. And your report will also be presented on the screen. Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello, Ray. We can hear you loud and clear.
Hello, is that Paul?
Yes, this is Chair Spieler. Paul, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair Spieler. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. Look, you can see Exhibit 1. It simply shows the two properties from the assessor's parcel map. I just wanted everybody to kind of know where they are. The appellant is number 16. I'm sorry, down there, number 10. Is that, yeah. And lot number 19, and Smant is lot number 20. You see that? Above the word Cali?
This is Nick Kuntz.
Yeah,
I
I
see
think
it, but I believe you're referring to 20 and 21, not 19 and 20.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 20 and 21. That is correct. Okay. Oh, yeah. I've got it in front of me now. 20 and 21. Okay. And you'll soon see. I hate to get into saying someone is telling an untrue information to you, but I'm afraid the facts are going to reveal that Mrs. Smant is doing that. I would like to go on. Her father owned both of these vacant lots originally. They built a home on lot 20, and that building lot number 1483, the building permit was finalized, and when it was finalized, they sent the drawings at that time, which are no longer in the records of the city, to the county. And they also did an inspection of the property at that time. And that inspector filled out his inspection, and he did a very detailed drawing of that building. And it is on a graph pattern squared off by the foot. And that is on Exhibit 2. If you would look at that, please. There you go. Now, if it's big enough, you can see that in 1963, at the time of the final building inspection, there was a deck number 1 that you had to actually walk across to get from the carport to the front door, which is recessed into the building between the back behind the car park. You can also see there's a deck number 2, and that was the deck in question. And it has a little leg going back because that was the only door access from the house, which you will see a photograph later, at the time of the building of the deck. And the house was built with that door accessing the deck at that time. Now, what's really interesting is next to that is the first assessment base of how the taxes were going to be started on all of the improvements. You will notice deck number 1 and deck number 2 were assessed at the time of construction as the base, and the owner and owners of that property have had to pay taxes and rising taxes on that deck since 1963. And there's no question about the fact the deck was there. I'm sorry to say that she said the deck was never there when she lived there. Her father built it. She inherited property when he didn't. She inherited property from him, but he never intended for this to be a problem when he built the deck. He did not mean for it to encroach 4 feet 5 inches, I don't think. He may not even know where the lot line was, because he owned both properties at the time he was building his first home, this home. And he built that deck. Now, years later, he decided to build a home on the other lot. Up until then, he and his family had just used that lot for personal landscaping, raising their children, and so on. When they decided to do that, this is what happened. He did not intend to create this a problem for his daughter who would inherit the property or be the owner of the property in the future. I do not believe the building inspector, when he signed off the final, took in 1963, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I worked for my grandfather and father on permits in that same time period. And I will tell you that decks were often not labeled, but as significant. They just, I don't know why, but they just weren't. But they were shown on the drawings that were given to the city. They were shown on those same drawings that were used by the county assessor at that same time, who actually inspected the property at a date that's on this, and that he didn't intend to cause a problem. None of those people intended to cause a problem by just telling the truth at the time for some future. It could have all been resolved if Mr. Schmidt at that time had just done a lot line adjustment at that time. Now, we can go on now to exhibit number 3. As time passes, he sold that property to a gentleman, and he sold that property to a Mr. Peters. And Mr. Peters, at the time of the sale, they did a survey, and the deck was then recognized as an encroachment. And to continue the sale, Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Peters thought that the only needed solution at that time was an easement that covered the deck and the pathway. Now, this is another false claim. I'm afraid this one is by the city. It says that this very deed that they used as an exhibit, if you'll notice, it is just reserving something for lot 21 of a sewer easement. Then they reference that. However, if you look at parcel 2 shown on that, and they read it themselves. It says that it was for a walkway easement 10 feet wide, favoring parcel 20 and from 21. It's very clear. It was on the same page they read. Why that information was not disclosed to you, I do not know. I can't imagine why. Now, also, so that easement was recorded. Mr. Schmidt again thought that solved the problem. Something he thought, I guess, would never be a problem. And at that time, the deck existed. And they built a new home on the other side. Now, I do not think it is coincidental that they built that new home 20 feet, as close as they could, 19 feet, 7 inches away from the property line, allowing for the 10 feet easement plus 9 feet, 7 inches for the required 10-foot setback. Now, that's where it stood at the time of when that sale happened.
What's that, what was that date?
Okay, and that grant deed, if you look at, was the date.
2376.
What?
2376.
Oh, that was February 3rd, 1976. And then the Smants then built that neighboring house, and they had sold, and they sold this property to Mr. Peters. Now, Mr. Peters actually owned it a very short time. He made no such promise, another false statement, that he would ever tear down that deck. You know.
That was in 1973.
And anyway, so he then sold the property to the Stewarts, Mr. James Stewart. And at that time, he inherited the 10-foot easement. He inherited the building permit, a final for everything. He inherited the drawings from the county assessor's office that showed the deck and all improvements, and that he was paying taxes on since the sign off of the building permit and the county assessor's assessment of it.
What's the easement?
What exhibit is that?
That's the one that Tina was talking about.
Okay, now, let's see.
Number 4.
Oh, now we move on to exhibit number 4, which exhibit number 4 is the zoning report that Mr. Peters decided he would also like to get, since he now had an easement. And I mean, he had the easement and he wanted to know, I think the law went into effect in 1978, maybe it was 76, 78 for the first zoning reports. They came out there, they looked at it, they looked at the deck, they looked at everything. They did it on site, they're not allowed to do that now, of everything, inside, outside. And they said there was no zoning violation, which it would have been a zoning violation for having been built without a permit, or having built into the setback, or having been built on a neighbor's property.
That's when he was selling.
And that's when he was selling. Oh, that's when he was selling it. He got that for the person he was selling it to. Okay, and everything was cleared, and so the person buying it, Mr. Stewart, who currently owns the property since that date of 1978. That's when he purchased it, and Mr. Peters had just bought the property about 2 years before. And in that length of time, so he got the zoning report for Mr. Stewart, and it cleared everything up, again asserting the same information, that the building department inspector had not made a mistake, neither intended or unintended. The county assessor's office had not made a mistake, intended or unintended. And now this person had not made a mistake, intended or unintended. And the deck existed. Now it goes to Mr. Stewart, the current owner. And if you look at page 3 of this exhibit, exhibit 4, you will see where it says none. In fact, even on page 2, it says the same thing. They wrote it twice. If you look at the previous page, none.
No violations.
No violations of any kind. Okay, now we move on to exhibit 5. And this is very important. Ms. Schmidt herself has said, and you have agreed, that she owned the property at the time of this survey. And if you notice, I include the front page, even though it is not the page that shows the deck area in question, but it shows what the surveyor, I think a lot of us are old enough to know Joe Waters and how long he was known in this area. He and his team probably did more surveys than anybody. And he had written in his own handwriting that it was for a setback line and a property line. And then he wet signed in blue on 08. Well, if you turn to page 2, of that, you will see, now we have written in red, so it's clear, 937 and 931. Now, just above the 931, if I guess your exhibit, you can't show the bottom of the exhibit, but that is the property line, and it goes down to the corner that there it is, that he surveyed. And so he did that. He showed the property line between the two. He also showed the setback line, which is 10 feet. And you can see where that is. Now we have written in red 10-foot setback and easement, because the easement was 10 feet wide and the setback is 10 feet wide. So there it is. Now over in small handwriting, 9.54 distance. That was written by somebody on top of this. It might have been, Tim, you would know if you were out there and took that measurement of 19 feet, 4 inches. Was that you?
You can't talk right now. Only
Oh, he
you.
can't talk. Okay.
Everybody's
Somebody
doing it.
wrote that down and highlighted in yellow. And what we did, so the 9.54 is the closest that the large new addition. The new addition is the walls that are shown with double lines. Again, the additions respected a distance of 19 feet, 7 inches from the neighboring property line. Room for the easement and room to continue respecting the required 10-foot setback. That was the intent at the time. Well, I think that shows, and when this was shown and this was given to her, she knew exactly where the deck is because Mr. Waters took the time to show the deck and its exact location and its distance, 4 feet, 7 inches, maximum encroachment into her property. Now, this is another survey that was done, and
Page 3.
page 3 is another survey we found, but I also think that this was also requested by Mrs. Smant. I don't have a date or any information on it, but she might, well, I can't say she might remember. You would need to rotate that, please, on the screen.
No, this is correct. This is
Oh, okay. Well, that's all right. You can see where the deck, 4'7", corresponds with the water survey, and it again shows the distance of the deck encroachment in question. And again, that dimension is exactly the same, and all the coordinates and everything are all the same as on the water survey, but you would have to scale to get that location from the new building division. This was something done at the time of that construction also.
Number 5.
Number 5.
What's it? Right here?
Oh, number 6, I'm sorry. Now, this is the first notice of violation. The unusual thing about this is that the complaint at that time was that they were building a stairway. In fact, you heard the reading of it. A stairway was being built that caused the requirements for drywall, electrical, all kinds of things, exterior. Everything. Well, the inspector went out there. What he found was a 6 foot long, 3 foot tall, about 9 inches or 1 foot wide little wall down on the ground far below this that had been built just as a garden wall. And there was no stairway. There was no construction going on. Nothing that is in the complaint was true. And it was disregarded. But it was just another statement in error from Mrs. Smant. There was no construction going on. And the deck, and when she made that complaint, the deck above, which she said never existed, was right above this little 3 foot tall wall, which was 8 feet below a deck on the sloping ground and may have been just included just as a little retaining wall. But that's all it was. So it was an untrue statement, and yet a violation was written. And it just concerns me the number of errors that continued being floated through this this violation and had no merit due to the fact that there was simply no stairway being constructed near the garden wall.
Mr. Appleton, can I interrupt you, Mr. Appleton? I don't
Yes.
see where it says there was no stairway. Could you point that out to me?
Well, it's in my letter for sure.
Where?
And in the notice of violation, let's see. In 19, let's see, the original notice of violation, which due to concern, we have found the property. Let's see, due to recent concern and inspection of the survey, footings for an extra stairway have been built within the side yard setback without permit. The house was tendered for fumigation today. This inspection was tendered. Well, that obviously is not true. And I think you would have to go probably to team, but I don't know who the inspector was at that time. Was that Timo? But if that problem was not included in 1 through 4 later, it simply didn't exist. The stair didn't exist.
But again, I need to see it on the screen where it says there's no stairway. I don't know where that's coming from.
Oh, I say that in my introduction letter. I break it out by
Does it say
item.
it on here? On
What?
page 2? Page 2? This is page 2 of the original survey.
Let's see.
Maybe it
Well,
says
the
that-
little wall is still there, and there was certainly no stairway. But hold on, let's look at my letter I wrote. My opening letter I wrote very clear. It's a statement listed as number F.
You don't give any proof.
Statement number F. There was no stairway. There was a complaint for a stairway, but there was no stairway. In fact, I don't think it was actually the inspector ever got out there. Lauren went out there, but never got to do any actual inspection inside. And I don't think Timo got out there for quite a while later, maybe 4 years later. But that little wall is still just sitting there, and there was never a stairway. The pathway.
Do you want to show the photos?
Oh, I don't think I have a photo of that little wall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's never been a stairway. I don't know I can say. If there had been, we would have had to get a permit for it or whatever, but there was never a stairway there, ever. Yeah.
So this is Chair Spieler. I just read the violation on Exhibit 6, and it said footings for an exterior stairway, but it doesn't really say that, that doesn't indicate that the stairway was there. So
Yeah,
I
there
think
was no
somebody
stairway.
was
The
assuming
little
that
wall, all it was
Yeah.
a little wall, 6 feet long, 1 foot wide, 3 foot high. And that was, she said, I guess, that could be attributed to be a footing, but the stairway itself is back further from it. It was not under the stairway directly. It's down the hill. And it was, out away from the stairway, and it was not under, away from the deck, it wasn't under the deck. It was just a little garden wall right there, built at the foot of a slope before the property leveled out again for the backyard. And they were never required to get a permit for it, and it was cleared up. And when somebody finally got out there to look at it 4 years later, it was not included in the violation, as you can see in the amended zoning report.
Amended violation.
Yeah, there was no stairway, ever.
Yes. So Nick, does that answer your question?
Well, it was Jim that asked the question, but I don't think the stairway.
Or Jim, excuse me.
I don't think the stairway is involved in these 4 violations of the current appeal.
That's right.
So if it's not there, then why are we talking about a stairway that maybe existed, maybe didn't, but it's not in?
Mrs. Schmidt, if you'll look through the records as I continue to go through them, continued to call for complaints that did not even exist. And
Okay, but
we'll just keep going through them.
But we're dealing with this complaint. And
Yeah.
there's no stairway in this complaint.
That's right.
Okay.
Well,
I think Jim,
I need to go on now.
He's just
The
providing
amended
backup
notice of complaint.
information.
Yeah, now we're going to talk about the amended. Oh, yes, sir? Yes? now the amended notice of violation and the 4 items. Okay. Violation number 1. Yes, the deck had a man door, one door, as I mentioned to you earlier, which you'll see a photograph of it. Is this?
Yeah.
Oh. No. Where is that?
These are your photos.
No, this is a photo. G. Okay. My item G, exhibit 7. Okay. Well, anyway, let's just get going. The new I think the word installed without proof. That is true. He was in the set in the process of replacing large windows, 2 of 3 same size windows that were on the side of the building. Now, if you look at exhibit 7, page 1, no, page 2, down below the bottom picture, you will see the 3 windows. And
Crystal, can you bring us to that page, please?
exhibit 7, page 2. There it is.
I think we're on the page.
Yep. At the bottom is a photograph taken by Miss Schmatt. It shows at the time before, it shows that the 2 doors are on the left side, to the left side. The third door, to the right side. The third door to the left is the third window is still a window and it still exists there. The 2 other windows were being replaced, and you can see where they were being stored in the garage that a photo again that Miss Schmatt took there. She just took those photos. She knew something was up, and she took this photo after the 2 doors were put in, and there's the other window still in place. Okay. Now, let's see.
You said he was getting the permits for it.
Now, and we have had no objections at all about getting a permit for those 2 same size sliding glass doors that were put in that place. We have no objection at all. We've already communicated that to the building department and to the zoning violation people, and we're just going to apply for the permit. We've just been waiting for this hearing to go forward. Again, they are going to provide additional access to the permitted assessed tax deck. And now we'll go to
number 2.
Exhibit 7, page 2.
Item. Look here.
Hold on.
This one. Number 2 on the violation letter.
Okay. Well, we've already gone over the deck quite a bit. So I don't know if I need to make any further presentation of that. I think that's really clear. Exhibit 7 and 8 pretty well cleared that up. Exhibit 7 pretty much cleared that up.
Let's complain about the new fence, number 3.
Okay. Now we're at number 3, and this is a funny one. If you look at exhibit 3, page 3, Mrs. Schmatt, there's a light colored wall there. You see the wood at the bottom there in the bottom photo?
Yes.
I think this is when Timo came out, I believe. But Mrs. Schmatt, I don't know if he took this photo or if Mrs. Schmatt did, but it is actually a photo of an unpermitted fence that Mrs. Schmatt built on what she thought was her property line. So the deck comes forward and makes a turn right there as the land shows. The fence behind the wood fence, where it's kind of white, but it's really just a gray fence. That is just about 2 feet behind the property line. The property line she was building, she thought, was right at the end of where the deck encroached. And
so this is Chair Spieler. For clarification, that is the orange wood-colored, light wood-colored fence we're talking about. Yes.
It's the only unpermitted fence, and it was built by Ms. Schmidt on her own property. It should not have ever been a violation. But there was a lot of confusion, I think, by anybody listening to her about what was going on. But the fence was built because at that time, that is where the gate was that went out, that the easement offered access from the rear yard coming up, because it was 10 feet wide, coming up around the encroaching deck, around to and into the deck at the end of that orange wall. Okay? She built this fence to block their gate and their easement, permitted easement access from the rear yard in the 10-foot easement coming around and going in. And at that time, if you look behind the deck at that time, all the way along the side of the house, you will see a little white door. There's a window, 2 doors, 2 little windows, and then there's a little door back there going all the way to the deck. That was the only access from the house.
Excuse me, Raymond. Chair Spieler, where is this? These little doors that you're talking about? Which exhibit should we be looking at?
On the lower photo, you will see going along.
Page 3?
Yes.
Yes, page 3. I'm very sorry. I know there's a lot to follow.
Orange fence.
There's the orange fence. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. She built that, what she thought was on her property line, in front of the gate. The only access the people had to get on that deck from their easement, 10 feet, which went from that orange fence to the right into her property.
He wants to know where the door is.
Okay, now, but that gate went across their path, their access path, walkway, went through that gate that she then blocked, across their deck and down the wall of their house, way down, past the window, sliding glass doors, to a little one, is a white door. You see it where the jog in the deck goes back? It went, and it's also in the assessor's map drawings. It is shown on that drawing also in 1963. That was the way in which they went from a room, a den, to the deck. The only access they had to this deck, which is why all the drawings from the assessor's office in 1963 showed that deck when it was drawn. That was the doorway. So she completely blocked access at that time because the sliding glass doors were not coming in yet. They were unpermitted. Well, there you go. So that's what, but it did do that. So, so she tore that down. When the violation came out, she took that down, even though we got the violation letter about the fence that she had built on her own property, because it was a lot of confusion about where the property line was, and the deck, and so on. But so that was an error right there. Now, after that, in order to give her, with the sliding glass doors, some privacy, because she was complaining about being able to see to and from the deck seat across the 20 feet from her property line towards her building, the client added 2 more feet to a portion of the existing railing. You see the very back of the deck, there's in the design, it shows a 42-inch, 3'6" required guard going across the deck. Guardrail. Do you see that past the table?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then it makes a turn. Well, they added 2 more feet to the top. That same guardrail came down that deck. Well, they added 2 more feet to that after this. After she built this, they added 2 feet to that. She took this down, and that kept some privacy. They hoped it afforded some privacy to her. Okay. Even though a photograph she herself sent over from her own deck, which is the above photograph, she's looking from her deck over to the other side, window, 2 sliding glass doors, and now in the far right of that photo, there's the little doorway I was talking about. That was the original top of the original man door that came out to that deck. Well, now you can see the 2 feet has been added, blocking some of the view from either side into that deck. Them to her, her to them. That's why on one part of that, looking towards the deck, you don't see that black line because the deck is back down to its 42-inch foot all the way to that in front of that door. But about that tree limb, just past the flag and then to the left of it, that tree, after that, and beyond to the deck, the 2 foot was added. So I don't think it was
Raymond, this is,
and I don't
Raymond,
think,
this is
I don't think that,
Feeling.
okay, I don't think that 2 feet addition to a guardrail, which there are hundreds of, even on permitted buildings, is a fence. And somebody said that maybe that was a fence on top of the deck now. But guardrails that provide privacy between two associated neighbors have often been put on at the time of construction. She herself has an 8-foot tall privacy fence wall at the other end of her deck because her neighbor is so close. So, and they're all over the place. So that's not counted as a fence. So I think the only fence was the one that she built herself and it was taken down. And now we're to, oh, do you have any questions?
Yes, Raymond, this is Chair Spieler. So the bottom at the bottom photo, which shows the light colored wall, that is the 931 address, correct?
Yeah, yes. That's
okay.
My client's, let's see, McTeague's property, which, I mean, okay. That's the Stewart's property.
And then I was a little confused. The wall that's in that photo that's on the very right-hand side underneath the tree limb that looks like it was raised up higher. I thought you said that Mrs. Schmatt built that wall.
She built that orange wall. Yeah. Because she thought
no, what about the other wall? Yeah, she built the orange wall. I'm clear on that. But what about the wall that's on the deck itself that is higher than the?
Okay, the guardrail at the very back. Okay, I'll explain. The guardrail, there was an original guardrail at the time of the deck's construction in 1963 that went from the very back of the house where the little man door is. It came forward and created an area about 4 feet wide. And it's shown in the assessor's drawing, came forward, and then it goes across behind the table, and it also came forward all the way up to the end of her wall where it jogs back in, and that's the exact drawing on the assessor's map. Well, that's where the gate was, and she built her orange fence to block the gate. So nobody could get up their easement, onto the deck, into the house.
Who modified the fence that is on the opposite side of the house?
For what?
Who built the fence that is on the opposite side of the table from the house? It's taller, it's a wall, excuse me. Yeah, it's taller than the rest of the walls.
Yeah, it's 2 feet taller. Mr. Stewart, the owner there, did that. He did that because in taking her, trying to stop the use of the deck, he built that, the 2 foot extra height. He added that to his guardrail, which is not against the law, and it does not constitute a fence. There are hundreds of them all over the city. Many, and in fact, she has even built above her 42-inch wall. She has made an 8-foot privacy screen on one end of her deck.
Okay, that clears it up for me.
Yeah, it's not a wall. It is just 2 foot added to the guardrail. The back side of the construction, because of the way in which they added it, makes it look like everything was new, but it wasn't. It's 2 feet just added to the existing required guardrail that was already there since '63. 2 feet height added. It was 3'6". Now it's 5'6", maybe 8 because of the top board, 5'8". We do not believe that constitute a wall. Extending a guardrail height for privacy to the neighbor creates a fence.
Okay, so item number 3, a new fence was constructed without approval or permits. That is the light fence that we're talking about. So we're I think we understand that now. So shall we move on to item 4?
Yeah, item 4. in these same photographs here, if you exhibit 7 again, number 2, the door was not the violation.
Existing carport.
The door to a deck, to a real small deck at the back of that, into the entrance, deck 1. Above that door, it goes right to a little platform, about a 2-foot wide platform that runs along the house. And that platform, which is about, I wish we had a photo. If you stepped outside and took a photograph, you would see about a 4-foot long platform that went from the other side of this door to the house. And that platform, which could be seen from outside, did not have guardrails on. And the ground was like 10 feet below, I think he said. And so we just agreed that we would apply for a permit at that time for the guardrails that would go on.
The sliding glass door.
Yeah. So the violation wasn't the platform. The violation was the guardrails. And Mr. Timo.
Okay, let's go to Exhibit 2 and on that assessor's map. And can you show us where this is?
Sure.
All right.
I got it.
Oh, look, that's a photo. Let's see. That might be it right there.
Oh, it's right here.
Oh, the assessor. The assessor's map?
Look.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you wanting to know?
Just the location of the what you were just talking about.
Oh, the little platform?
Yes, the platform.
See the carport drawing?
Yes.
Okay, because on the right, there's a little storage closet at the back of the carport. To the right of it, it ends about 3 foot before you get to the side of the carport. At that point is the door right there.
Okay.
And the deck shown is below that, 10 feet. And
I'm sorry, what's below that by 10 feet?
Deck number 1 is 10 feet lower.
Okay.
And when you step out this door, there was a little platform going it was going along from there to the front side of the building, which I think is a 10-foot dimension. It's kind of hard to, here it is. A 10-foot dimension and then an 11-foot dimension. It goes back to along that 6-foot portion of the wall. There's a platform leading to that 6-foot portion where it turns forward towards the carport. You see that?
Yes, I think I have that, yes.
Okay, so going straight from that door is about 2-foot wide platform running back, straight back. And to maintain the windows and stuff in that, right along that area. And it was there built at construction and was never taken down. And it needs guardrails because it's 10 feet down to the deck. The property slopes considerably. Once you get past the carport.
We don't have a photo of this, is that correct?
I guess not, no, because the platform itself wasn't in question. Well, yeah, it needs a guardrail. Guardrail has to be built along that platform wall over the deck on that side and a little bit on the right-hand side before it gets to the house.
Sheriff Spieler, this is Dick Koontz. If I may, it seems that the appellant is not contesting issues one.
We're not contesting that. Those guardrails should have been put on in 1963 when that little platform was.
So
was off there.
Really, 2 and 3 are the only real issues before us in my mind.
Let's see, 2 and 3.
Yes, I agree with
Member Kuhn. That's right. Number 3 is 2 feet added in height to a guardrail to provide privacy for either party, does that constitute a fence when it's added onto a this is basically at some point along there, it's almost a balcony because it's so high off the ground. But is that a fence? It's not a 2-foot height increase in the height of guardrail for privacy to Ms. Schmandt. And number one, the deck itself. If I think everyone acted in good faith in the beginning, Mr. Schmandt, her father, who built the house, first house, and built the deck, never intended for this to be a problem for anybody. This building department, by not putting the words deck on the building permit inspection sheet, but which found it all off at that time, and it was shown on the drawings that were then sent to the county assessor's office, I don't think they intended for it to be a problem at all either for that encroachment. A lot line adjustment at that time would have solved it for everybody. And now, I talked to Tim Dunn today. I talked to a member of the Schmandt family who is the realtor who is selling the property for Ms. Schmandt next door. I talked to her this morning about you're having to tell buyers that people have the right of a 10-foot easement, deck or no deck, to walk up and down 10 feet of their property, walking their dog, walking their kids, whatever. But what if you could just have a 10-foot lot line adjustment and you still have the required 10-foot setback to the building, and it all goes away. There's no, you don't have to tell the buyer anything because there's a lot line, and there's a fence or whatever you want to build. So that was what I was talking to everybody about then. And she said, because it was early, this morning, she said she would like to, I tried to call Ms. Schmandt herself, but it went to voicemail. She did not respond to this hearing at all. My calling may have even given her a reason to call, but in her call, she said some things that just weren't true, obviously. Oh, there was no fence there when I've been living there, when it obviously it was, even had surveys she did. So I just want you to know that we think the deck was permitted, was inspected, was taxed since 1963. It is regretful that there was not a separate check mark on the building permit, which I have a copy in front of me, that says deck. it just doesn't. It's got everything else, but in 1963, that would not have been unusual. It was inspected as constructed.
Mr. Chair,
and filed.
Mr. Appleton, if the presentation has concluded, we can open it for any comments by the public and then continue any other questions the board members may have.
Okay, I guess in closing, I would say the deck was permitted, it was assessed, it has not been altered in any way since it was constructed, still has the same dimensions as shown on the 1963 plan that was inspected, plan that was assessed, and a condition that it be maybe and it was built to code and has satisfied the intent of the code that the state building code requires. And I guess only an engineer going out to satisfy that it's continued to be stable, though it hasn't moved an inch in all those years, over 50 years. But I think it's just satisfied. Discovery, they made it clear, Tim did today in his phone call, that he had never seen the tax records because he couldn't get access to them, and he thanked me for it. And the date of the tax record is the same, it's just a month and a half after the sign off of the building permit, which is about how long it would take for the client to get over there and them to get over there and see it. I think that the matter is moot, and that matter has been resolved with information. That was not available. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Raymond Appleton. So now I'd like to open this up to public comment. Are there any members from the public that would like to speak on this issue?
Mr.
Due to time
Chair,
constraints, each person may be limited to 2 minutes. Yes, Crystal.
it does look like we have one hand raised. I will review the oral public comment process to allow for others to raise their hand in the event that they want to do so. We have a raise hand icon on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. If you're on a telephone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. The shortcut keys are listed on this slide. For Windows, Alt-Y, for Mac, Option +Y. So waiting to speak is Sherry McTeague. I apologize if I messed up your name. I will allow you to speak. You will have 2 minutes as the chair described.
Hello, this is Patrick and Sherry McTeague. Sherry is the executor for James Stewart, who is turning 97 in 3 days. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, just a couple of things I wanted to help you clear up. The deck, in fact, is still 15 feet. And I just had my wife go out and measure it one more time just to make sure. I think that picture that you commented on makes it look like it's more than 15 feet is from a wide angle lens. And Dr. Stewart, who has lived here since '78, who bought the house based on the city inspection that there were no problems, has lived here the whole time, has not done any work to the deck, the house, or whatever other than just maintenance. He never gave Ms. Schmatt an idea that he was going to remove the deck. When we weren't even here when this all started, and he was at that time 94 years old, and we had to step in to try to take over because it was clear that there was quite a bit of harassment going on. She had been bugging him to take the deck down, and he said, should I take the deck down? What should I do? And we said, no, never do it. So are there any questions that we could clear up for you? Because we are staying in the property right now.
Well, this is Jim Marston. Thanks for that input. These pictures that we have showing construction with the windows and stuff in the garage, was that before you took over then?
Yes. However, I am familiar with it.
Okay. When you say nothing's been done since he's been there, this kind of looks like something's been done. There's windows.
Since he moved out to go to the retirement home. And he had to clean up the house. He had lived here over 40 some years.
Okay.
And hadn't done much maintenance, so it needed painting and some things. And the sliding glass door that was put in, the existing 2 windows by the window company said because they're the same location, they didn't need a permit. However, now we realize that it probably did need a permit, and he's willing to get that permit.
Okay. And I think the door also needs a permit because it needs to have a light switch at least in there.
There is a light switch there.
Okay.
Always was.
So this is Chair Spieler. I have a question. So the sliding glass doors were just replacing sliding glass doors that were already there. Is that correct?
No, they were fixed glass
windows.
I see.
They
but
were
they were the same
glass,
size.
They were floor to ceiling plate glass. That
okay.
That was there from the beginning.
This is Marston again. I have a question about this 10-foot walkway. Is the deck on top of that walkway, or is it walkway still open for pedestrian use? The 10-foot walkway.
Let me explain the walkway. It's a little confusing.
Yes.
When the house was built, off of the back of the carport, there was a door, which we've always kept locked, and James Stewart kept locked because they didn't want anyone going there. There's a little walkway platform to the roof, which was access to do any repair work on the roof. On that little walkway from the carport to the roof, there was just a 3/4 inch steel piping rail on one side. And when Timo came to do the inspection, when we got here, I think it was September, he looked at that. He wanted to know what was behind that door. And we told him that was the roof and that was access to the roof. And we opened it up and he said, oh, this needs some handrails. And we said, fine, we can either take that walkway off or we can put up handrails. And he said, just put up some handrails. And we're not opposed to doing that.
But then what happens to the 10-foot walkway that was in the easement if you're going to get rid of
Oh,
the,
if you're talking about
Yes.
the easement walkway to clear up the stairway, there were old railroad tie stairway going down the 10-foot easement. And about in 2015, I believe it was, Jim Stewart had to take out those rotting railroad ties, and he was going to put a stairway down there. And he put in that small retaining wall. And at that time, Ms. Schmatt came over to him and told him she didn't want him to put a stairway down there, even though it was in his easement, and replacing a stairway that was there because it was her property, not his property. And he wanted to be a friendly neighbor, so he just stopped the project and never built the stairway. And when the notice of violation came out, that little concrete holding wall that the stairway was going to be attached to was removed and had some boulders put there to retain the wall back.
thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you very much. Are there any other persons that would like to be public comment?
We see none at the time.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. We will now close public comment. Are there any questions from the board to staff or the appellants? Please make sure to use your camera when speaking.
Well, this is Jim. I just want to get something off my chest. I did not appreciate getting all this information from Mr. Appleton the day before the hearing. We normally ask for these stuff 7 to 10 days ahead of time. The violations were filed in October, and I have no idea why we had to wait the very last day to get all this information and try to rationally discuss it, understand it, improve our understandings. You know, I don't know why it was even not, it should have been postponed for a month, in my opinion. We should not get stuff a day before the meeting. So I was upset that we had to go with that and waste a whole day when I had other things to do, but I had to take this as my job. But it didn't seem very fair. Thank you.
This is Nick Coons, and I'd like to echo that sentiment. And I would encourage staff to do whatever is possible to get us anything for our consideration as early as possible. I can tell you that had this been an issue regarding accessibility and a public accommodation, I would have asked for a continuation.
And I would have also done that. This is just not the way it should be done.
Okay, so also we're going to have a discussion among the board members now. So there's really the two items that are of concern. The appellant has agreed to items, I think, taking care of items number 1 and 4. And the main item is the deck that was built without a permit. It seems to me that the person that owned the original properties together, Mr. Schmatt, he had the deck built on the house. It was over the property line. Later, I guess when they realized it was over the property line, they had made an easement, a walkway easement. You know, it doesn't specifically say deck easement, but it looks like the intent was, as Mr. Appleton pointed out, that was to take care of the deck that was over the property line. So that's kind of my feeling on what the intent was back at that time. So I just wanted to say that's kind of how I'm reading it at this point.
is Nick Kuntz. I'm reading it similarly. I don't think that the easement, the walking path easement, was so much to accommodate the deck as to allow the property owner at 931 to walk down around the deck to their lower property. And from my view, based on the county assessor's report, it appears that the deck was likely constructed by the previous owner, the complainant's father. If the deck is not more than 15 feet from the house, I cannot find any evidence that this is new or unpermitted construction. If it has been expanded beyond the 15 feet, it would appear to me that the complainant was aware of this encroachment for at least a decade before they sought any remedy, as far as I can tell. And this becomes a very complicated civil matter that I think is beyond this board to get involved in. It's just my view on that. And as for item number 3, what I see here is a privacy screening, not a fence. Now, I would defer to the chief building official or inspection staff about that, what constitutes screening on a guardrail versus a fence, and what limitations there might be in the building code for height. Seems to me that maybe this needs a permit to raise. I'm not sure on that, but I guess I need clarity on number 2, and I believe I'm inclined to ask that that staff go measure that 15 feet and report back, and we continue this.
Mr. Chair, Board Member Coons, Tim Dunn, our Building Inspector Supervisor, has raised his hand and he could chime in into that. I do want to make a note that Sherry McTeague has raised her hand, and it's at the discretion of the board if you would allow to hear back from her.
I guess I wouldn't object to hearing back. I did hear that the McTeagues state that it's 15 feet by their measurement. And I guess I'd just like to have an official go out and confirm that.
Okay, yes, this is Chair Spieler. Let's go ahead and have Mrs. McTeague comment.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
We can no longer hear you.
Can you hear us now? Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
we would just like to apologize to the board for bringing this so late to your attention. We tried to work on this for a long period of time, found it extremely difficult for lay people to work through the mechanics of the city and the permitting and the violations. And we were forced to hire someone outside to help us. So we just apologize to you for that.
This is Nick Kuntz. I thank you for the apology. I think that, and I can fully appreciate the difficulty of the mechanics. As a homeowner and a serial remodeler, I have been there and I feel your pain.
Thank you.
So I guess that the frustration was with the process, and we would like to to have staff adjust the process so that we were not rushed to review this. If we weren't able to get the information until yesterday, then I would have liked to have seen this rescheduled for the next month's hearing. So I would have had time to give your presentation the attention it deserves.
Okay, Nick, this is Chair Spieler. I wanted to comment on I think you had mentioned the railings being permitted. So if we decide that this was permitted in 1963, which is when it was apparent, looks like that's when it got recorded on the assessor's map, then I think we can, then if we make that assumption, we can assume that the railings were also put in according to the code at that time. So everything would be grandfathered in if it was permitted at that time. So, that's what we're looking at. Again, my feeling was that it was permitted at the time. There's evidence that shows it was recorded at the assessor's office. The only catch was that there was not the check on the building permit, as Mr. Appleton stated, but that makes sense to me that in 1963 a deck was considered, was not a significant part of the structure, and it may have been a common practice then where sometimes those things weren't checked off. So, but yeah, I just wanted to comment on the permitting of the railing. If the deck was built at that time, then the railings would be included with that.
Mr. Chair, board members of the board, excuse the interruption. I just wanted not to gloss over Board Member Kuhn's request earlier to have staff weigh in on the screening versus the guardrail. Board Member Kuhn, if you still would like that, we can have Tim Dunn, our Inspector Supervisor, weigh in.
Yes, please.
Yes, that'd be great if Tim could weigh in.
Sure. Board members, in the city of Santa Barbara, we have a building ordinance. And in our ordinance, it requires fences or walls over 42 inches and above to be permitted.
And this is measured at what height?
So it's measured from 5 feet out.
This particular wall is how tall? Or fence or screening or whatever we want to label it?
I believe he said it was 5'8". The appellant, I believe, said it was 5'8".
So that would require a permit.
And this is the fence that was built by Mrs. Schmidt, is that correct?
That's not my understanding. So there's two fences in the photograph. There's in the near ground that closest to the camera lens is the one built by the complainant at 937, and the one in the background on top of the deck is the one constructed by the appellant at 931, which I'm asking about the height of that. And also what I'm seeking from staff, specifically Mr. Dunn, is that a fence or is that a railing? How do we differentiate between a fence and a railing?
Thank you for the question. When I was out there, a fence and a railing can be one and the same. A safety railing, which is 42 inches high, when you have a drop off of more than 30 inches, is required by code. And I believe they said they added on 2 feet to provide this guardrail / fence. It looks like a fence to me.
Okay. So.
And is that, let me double check, is that guardrail that has, was built higher, is that part of the violation? Is because it says a fence, it doesn't really say anything about the guardrail.
Yes, so the violation in a whole, thank you for the question, is that we don't have, the city of Santa Barbara has no permits on file for the deck. So therefore for us, the deck was never permitted or inspected. And therefore then the guardrail / fence, which is built on the deck, for us, that it was never permitted.
And Paul, if I may, I found some imagery from Google Street View that shows around 2019, I believe, the guardrail was an open framed construction. And now in these images that were being shown today, there's boards that provide more screening on the existing old frame. Let me see if I can find in my packet here. If we look at the photograph from 937, looking through the tree at 931, you can see the framework of that guardrail, and that's how it appeared in 2019. And then all of the horizontal slats on the deck side of this framework appears to be new construction since 2019. But the rest of the footprint, I don't see any evidence that this has changed. And I think that everything hinges on the confirming that this deck is no more than 15 feet from the house. I have a hard time. It could be a forced perspective from a wide angle lens, and I'd just like to have staff confirm that. My guess is that we're going to find, this deck, if you, in one of these pictures, you see it's notched. It's not a perfect square. It's notched near where the complainant has built their fence, and my bet is that's the 15-foot line. But I'd like to have confirmation before we make any findings.
Well, Nick, that notch is on that assessor's map on Exhibit 2.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't
This is
catch
Jim
that.
Marston here. I'm sorry, Nick, go ahead.
No, that's all right. I didn't catch
Okay.
it. That's all.
In a previous century, I used to be a land surveyor. And so this was brought up by both parties that really, one of the problems is there should have been a correct lot split or a change to talk about all this problem with building on other people's property. That's the problem with, as you said, one person owned both lots and didn't split it correctly. So that's a survey problem which we can't deal with. I have a hard time, I know there could be perspective, but when I look at the size of that chaise lounge or the size of that table, I just can't really think that it's 15 feet only. So that's what was everybody agreed on. It was a 15-foot deck before. If it's not 15 now, then it's been there new. So I think that Tim or Timo needs to let us know, is that really 15 feet from the edge of the house to that back wall or not?
Yeah.
You know, I have bad vision, but to me that deck looks fairly new, and I don't think it looks 30 or 40 years old. The fencing looks pretty new. The planking looks kind of nice. I just don't call that a 30 or 40-year-old deck. But anyway, if we just measure it, that would be great. And while they're out there, can you just look at that 10-foot walkway easement and let us know if it really is still open as a walkway, or there's buildings on top of it or over it or blockages? Those are two things I like to have clarified.
And
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Board Member Newts, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I also want to acknowledge that Mr. Appleton has raised his hand. So if the board would like to hear from him at your discretion.
Chair Spieler, just for clarification, I went back and I looked at that assessor's. I don't see the notch there. what I'm seeing is what looks like about a 6 or 8 foot extension to the original square deck. That is not the full width. And
Okay, well, there's like a 7 foot by 8 foot notch at the fence, and I thought that's what you were talking about.
yeah, I'm seeing that notch in the deck at the fence there at the corner, but I don't see that on this here. What I'm seeing, what's now being shared on screen, I see that 8 foot, but I think that it looks like it's 7 feet and by 8 foot notch, but I don't believe that's over the deck. That's like the hardscaping where the complainant put in the fence.
Okay.
That's what it appears to me.
Right.
I could be wrong.
And can you also bring up page 3 in the report, not the staff report, but the other one? My page says it's page 3 in a red circle, right above Exhibit 4. Good. Okay, now on there, Mr. Appleton put the part in yellow that shows it's a 15 foot. And I just bring this up because of what Nick asked. At that time, there's a jog, not anyway, but that's a 15 foot deck. And that's what the question I think is it
Right.
still the same place? So
Yeah, and this illustrates my point to Paul. This yellow outlines the entirety of the deck, and I don't see a notch in that deck. The area below the yellow, there is something that's, that corner there, but I believe that's off of the deck area.
Okay, hold on a second. I thought the yellow is just a highlight and you can see the dashed lines underneath in that area that are the deck perimeter.
Well, okay, if you look at the bottom edge of that yellow highlight, it lines up with the edge of the wall of the house, the corner of the house, and along the deck. But if you go back and you look at the other picture, it shows that there's a notch in the deck that is not in line with the corner of the house. And I believe that's an extension.
Crystal.
All right, so it looks like we should have the building.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Crystal, could you go to page 18 of the PDF? This may be able to help visualize what Board Member Coons and Board Member Spiegler are trying to see here. So that'll be page 18 out of the PDF.
Is this in Mr. Appleton's presentation?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay, because I'm showing only 16 pages.
Oh, keep going. That would be under Exhibit 7. There you go, right there, the bottom picture. So this is basically the same view as Board Member Coons clearly explained, correctly explained. She said that deck is aligned with that extra wall, and there is some kind of walkway, wooden it appears, beyond that. So maybe this will help in the discussion.
Exactly. This illustrates my point exactly. I don't know what this is in the foreground. It looks like maybe a barbecue with a cover over it. But the deck line right behind it, that's in line with the corner of the house, is consistent with the assessor's survey or the assessor's photo. But then it looks like the deck is extended, but not for the whole width. It looks like maybe 6 feet in, the deck goes and extends another 6 feet. And seems to me that being that it's not consistent with the county record, I could find that is new and unpermitted construction.
This is Marston again. I kind of believe, in my eyes, I would say it's probably 15 feet to the shorter end of the patio, but I would bet the last part is new. But let's just have someone go out there and measure. If it's over 15 feet, it's a new patio, period. No questions.
Well, I'm not sure I agree that it's all new. I would agree that
oh, well,
anything beyond.
I didn't mean to say all. Yeah. It's a new patio if it's more than 15 feet.
Yeah.
And I also would like confirmation of the walkway, just because if someone's out there, let's just get that understood, because it's hard to see the walkway from here.
Seems to me this extension has been built over the walkway easement.
That's my guess, but it's only a guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's not a walkway if there's something on top of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it is possible that, so that there's the survey that the Schmantz commissioned. You know, it shows a lot of detail on 937. Unfortunately, it doesn't show the same level of detail on 931. It shows the deck over their property line, but I don't know, you know, at what point in time we really don't know if this deck has been altered. And
there's one thing, yeah, okay.
If a 15-foot deck is over the property line, I'm inclined to say that was understood when the Schmant family sold the property. And I'm have been involved in a similar family property that was subdivided, and I know how that goes. You know, you operate multiple parcels as if they were one for many years, and then because you never expect to sell it, and then when you have to sell it, you got to, you know, figure these details out. And I believe that it is possible that the 15-foot deck extended onto the property, and that was all understood and copacetic at the time of sale. But I also suspect that there's been an addition here. I just want to get staff to confirm that.
Yeah, so this is Chair Spieler. I have a question for Tim Dunn and Timo. So this is a deck. Is the underside of the deck, the framing, viewable or accessible?
Board Member Spieler, yes, the underside of the deck is visible.
And then I'm wondering if I think we'd like to have you go out and verify the measurements of this deck as it's shown on the assessor's map. It would be also good to look underneath to look at the framing to see if there's any difference in framing. For instance, if they did an extension of the deck, you could probably see that as slightly different type of wood. You know, there may be some evidence of that, or you could look at it and say, hey, it looks like it's all original construction. So I think I'm inclined to ask the city to maybe go out and do some more reconnaissance and measure the deck and maybe look underneath at the framing, and then get back to us at our next meeting.
I think that sounds, this is Marston, I think that sounds good, and I think that maybe to show good faith that we were promised a few permits that would be done for the ones we've agreed on, so perhaps the applicant can get those permits on the way, and we'll have, at the next meeting, we'll have information from the city about the deck and the walkway and the framing underneath.
Yes. So it looks to me like if we look at the
sorry, this is Nick Coons.
Go ahead, Nick.
On Jim's suggestion, it seems to me, I would agree. I think we should allow the appellant to move forward their permits for the uncontested portions of this violation, but I also understand the city needs to, as a matter of procedure, um, require that these other violations be abated, or else there's, by withholding the permit on the uncontested work, that's how they assure that the other violations get abated.
Well, that's true, Nick. This is Jim, but I think that Mr. Appleton said they're ready to get the permits for those two items. So I don't know how he could say that if, in fact, what you're saying, Nick, is true. So maybe Mr. Appleton could just tell us, did you really?
I think maybe it's the city staff and their regulations that is the.
Right, but Mr. Appleton did say he's ready to get permits on these two places. So.
Yeah, but how can he do that if the city won't let him?
Well, I don't know, but then he shouldn't have said they're ready to do it.
Yeah, what Nick's saying is that we should allow the appellant to make the three corrections, the violation corrections that they want to make, and then we need to come back with the deck, the number 2, the deck built without permit violation at our next meeting.
Hi, Tina Dye, Chief Building Official. I just wanted to say we could definitely separate the two permits so the applicant can be instructed to come in and get permits for the doors, the new sliders, and then handle the other portion of the violations after we get some more information.
Yes,
that sounds wonderful.
Right.
My concern there is for the costs, multiple permits, that having been through the process, I wouldn't want to have to go through it more times than I needed to.
Well, Nick, I think the hope is that if the deck is 15 feet and we determine that it matches the assessor's map, then that would be permitted at the grandfathered in for the permits that were issued in 1963. Right. The only thing on the deck is that the wall that was increased in height to 5'8" or whatever it was, that portion would need to be permitted, which I think that would be something the appellants would like to do. I'm not going to speak for them, but yeah. I'm assuming that. So I think we.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I think we vote that we, have the appellant proceed to obtain permits for items number 1, 3, and 4, which it sounds like they've agreed to do or they're willing to do. And then number 2, we come back at our next meeting to resolve that violation after we have some more information from the building department, such as the measurements of the deck and maybe review of the existing framing.
I like what you're saying. I agree with you, but on further consideration, it occurs to me that we have made findings contingent before, and we could say that, make a finding on number 2 that if it's no more than 15 feet, then we consider it permitted, and if it's beyond that, it's unpermitted and would have to be removed to 15 feet. Under a permit.
May I make a suggestion?
Okay.
This is Jim again. I want to make a suggestion in the about the time frame. Is there any way we can just get Tim or Timo to do those few measurements in the picture of the underside and the walkway? They should have that answer in I would hope a day or 2 or a week or something. I don't see how we have to wait for another meeting in a month. If they come back and say it's just 16 feet or 15 feet, and there's no proof it was ever enlarged, then we don't have to have a meeting for this.
Right. I don't think we need a meeting in either case. I think we could say.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Board Member Coons. I just want to check with John Doimus for the sake of the Brown Act. Would that be something that we could do where staff can go take measurements, report back to board members? How do we make that public, the findings?
Oh, can I interject quick before John comments? Why don't we make a finding that's stating if the deck is 5 feet, then we consider it permitted. If not, then the deck would need to be removed to the 15-foot mark, and leave it at that. So we would not require staff to come back and come to the board. Would that be an avenue that we could take?
That is definitely an option, Mr. Chair.
Does anybody feel like that they need to find out and would have any more to add to this discussion? I mean, I see it's either A or B. Either it was extended or it wasn't. And I know how I would ask staff to proceed in either case. So it seems like we could just put this to bed right now.
Okay, so I think what we need to do is approve the standing motion or disapprove, and then assuming that then we can come back. If that's not approved, then we can come back with our new motion.
Mr. Chair, just I
So
want to acknowledge
right now,
I'm sorry, I apologize for the interruption. Just want to acknowledge that there are two hands raised at the discretion of the chair and the board members. If you choose to hear from them, that is Sherry McTeague as well as Mr. Appleton.
Yes, I would.
yes, let's go ahead and hear from those two people, and then we'll go on to vote.
Chair Spieler, would that be with a 2-minute timer, or would it be open-ended?
Yes, and 2 minutes. Yes, this is the 2-minute timer. Let me explain. Due to time constraints, each person may be limited to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll go ahead and bring on the first speaker, and that would be Mr. Appleton.
Hello?
Yes,
we can hear you, Mr. Appleton.
I think this has been, first, hearing that this hearing was going to be, we got a notice in December, 2 days before Christmas, and me and my staff were not quite available until the day after, 2 days after New Year's Eve, and that wasn't very many days ago. And getting the documents that even Tim Dunn or Timo, I don't know who was assigned, that they had not found, and their original notice that the walkway was for a sewer line and that there was no survey. It took some time and looking. In fact, some of the final documents that we found weren't found until 3 days ago. And you have actually looked at some of those documents and have actually considered that those are very important in your decisions you're making right now. So I just want you to know we were pushing to get it done, and as their records would show, I was getting a hold of Crystal. I needed to know every minute, what's the latest deadline? And I wasn't asking that because I was trying to get extra time. I was out searching for the evidence that I knew you would be needing to make a fair decision. So that's first. The next thing is, if you look at the law about guardrails, it speaks to the minimum that they have to be. It does not say, when it is sit on the wood deck, even if the deck is above the ground, it only is measured from the wood deck. And there's no maximum law about that. You would have to start thinking that every deck that goes down to the ground below that the guardrails would have to be even higher. So anyway, I think it is a deck because it's sitting on the wood deck and the guardrails, and it's measured from there. And we've added 2 feet to that, and it is in no way a fence. And there's no law about that. Okay, and the only one other thing is that
your time's up.
Your time's up, Mr. Appleton. Now we would like to, I think, Mrs. McTeague has a comment.
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, so I can guarantee you, I have no problems with you come out and measuring the deck It is absolutely 15 feet. That picture that you're looking at that you think makes it look bigger than 15 feet is a wide angle lens. And the shadow that you see that looks like a notch was actually a tenant's dog cage in that corner. However, with that said, we don't want to take any more of your time. We appreciate you trying to get this done now because we have been perched here trying to get through this. We got canceled on last month's meeting and we'd like to get this done. So if you want to come out and measure it, as far as the boards that are on the guardrail, we can take them down and look at the neighbor again. We're not so concerned because when that property sells, we'll probably have nicer people there. Thank you.
Excellent.
All right.
So,
Mr. Chair and board members, I just want to also point out that Tim Dunn, supervisor for inspection, also had his hand raised.
okay, love to hear from Mr. Dunn.
Okay, Mr. Dunn, please go ahead.
Thank you, panel board. I would just like to clarify that I was asked to measure the deck to make sure it's a maximum of 15. As far as the pathway that we're talking about, the easement that's underneath, that would be very difficult. The way that I've walked that location, could not find a surveyor's indication of a pin, one of the brass pins for a property line. And there is no way that I would be able to identify walking down that slope where the property line is or the easement. The only individuals that could do that would be a surveyor.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Dunn.
thanks. I don't think we need that because we have the Joe Waters survey, which seems like it indicates that deck. So I think the only question we have right now is that deck 15 feet.
Yeah. So now it becomes, how do we phrase this motion? Well, actually, I guess we have to get to the standing motion, yeah?
First, we have to vote on the standing motion, okay? So, Jose Barajas, could you state what the motion is that we'll be voting on?
Yes, the motion before the board is if you accept the violation findings of the new sliding glass door that was installed without approval or permit, that the deck was built on adjacent property without approval or permits, and that the new fence was constructed without approval or permits, and that the existing carport has man door leading to the platform to the roof, and the platform is more than 10 feet from grade and does not have guardrails.
Okay, for purposes of discussion, I can find 1, 3, and 4, but I cannot find 2, given the current information. So I would be inclined to vote not to uphold the standing motion and bring back an amended motion.
Okay, so let's take a vote on the standing motion. We will use roll call for vote. Please use your cameras. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Nick Kuntz.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, just for the sake of order, I believe somebody needs to make a motion and second that, and I'll go on the vote.
You are right. I apologize. Okay, we need a motion to accept or amend or deny the standing motion.
I'd like to motion that we amend the standing motion.
Jim Marston.
Do we have a second? Okay, call to vote. We will use roll call to vote. Please use your cameras. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Nick
I'm
Kuntz.
sorry, can you define who was the first and second of the motion?
Nick Kuntz was did the motion, and the second was Jim Marston.
Thank you.
Aye.
We will use roll call to call for vote. Please use your cameras. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Nick Kuntz.
Aye.
James Langhorn.
Aye. Aye.
I think Paul muted himself.
John Maloney.
Aye.
Jim Marston.
Aye.
Paul Spieler, aye. So now we need a motion from the board. So now we need to amend the standing motion. Did I do that correctly? Do we need to amend the motion before we vote on it?
John Doimus, if you may, Mr. Chair, I believe you did it correctly. You can now set a separate motion to amend under which you can, as you had previously discussed, require permits for items 1, 3, and 4, and then the 15-foot confirmation on item 2.
Okay, Nick, would you like to make the motion for the amendment?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. I'm not sure the best way to word this, but I move to uphold findings 1, 3, and 4, and to amend finding 2 such that if staff confirms deck width of 15 feet, that we proceed as if it had been permitted. Otherwise, a permit should be required to bring it back to the 15-foot original size.
I'll second that motion. Jim.
That was Jim Marston that seconded. Okay. Now we will use roll call to vote. Please use your cameras. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay.
Paul, before we vote,
Nick.
Before we vote, I'd like to ask staff if that was clear and sufficient, and that, you know, ask legal if that would be adequate to achieve our goals.
Mr. Chair, Board Member Coons, it was clear to me. I want to confirm with Crystal. Was that clear on the note taking for the motion?
Yes, thank you.
And John Doimus, can you weigh in as to the process? It appears that John may have dropped off the meeting. So again, it was clear to staff. So we can proceed with the motion.
Okay.
Okay, we have an amended motion and we will use a roll call for a vote. Please use your cameras. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Nick Kuntz.
Aye.
James Langhorn.
Aye.
John Maloney.
Aye.
Jim Marston.
Aye.
Paul Spieler. Aye. The motion is approved.
Chair Spieler, if I may, before we adjourn, I'd like to make sure that staff understands why I was asking for clarification from Mr. Doimus. And my intent, because there was a hearing we had at one time where it was later determined that our motion was not legally binding, and the city attorney's office and the then chief building official made a change to what our intent was, and I would have had it come back to this board because I was not happy with that outcome. So I would like to make it clear to staff that I would hope if there is any questions from legal, that that this come back to us as a continuance and not be settled as a matter of procedure.
Mr. Chair, Board Member Coons, thank you for that background, and it'll be duly noted on the minutes.
I do have
Okay,
one
so
quick
to
question.
conclude,
Can I have a quick question for Mr. Dunn? I understand we're not a surveyor and it might be difficult, but to me, I'm just asking, can you go and see if there's a visible 10-foot walkway someplace? I don't care if it's in the right spot, but
Jim,
is it?
why?
Mr. Chair, board members, I
Jim, we
apologize,
can't-
but once the motion has been done
Right.
and moved on, we kind of move on from it. If you would like to view it again, then
Yeah.
we have to go through another voting.
And it's not even being contested here as a violation. It's not even.
Yeah.
It's inconsequential
Oh.
to the discussion.
Yeah, thank you. It's inconsequential. Okay, so the motion carries. Now we have an adjournment. We need a motion from the board to adjourn. Then we will use roll call for the vote. Please use your cameras. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Second to the motion. Call
Marston.
to vote. We will use roll call. Please use your cameras. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Nick Kuntz,
Aye.
James Langhorn,
Aye.
John Maloney,
Aye.
Jim Marston,
Aye.
Paul Spieler, aye. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. You guys all have a great evening.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.